She woke up that morning believing it would be ordinary. The sun entered her room softly, and the world felt calm. She dressed without knowing this calm would not last. Her mind was filled with simple plans: work conversations, laughter, shared coffee moments. Nothing warned her that life was about to fracture. The building was crowded with familiar faces. People moved with purpose, voices blending into a rhythm of normal life. She greeted coworkers, smiled politely, and settled into her space. Time passed quietly until the sound came. A sound that did not belong. A sound that ripped through safety. At first, her mind refused to understand. Her body reacted before thought could form. People screamed. Footsteps crashed against floors. Fear spread faster than reason. She dropped to the ground as instinct took over. Her heart pounded violently. Breath became shallow and sharp. Every second stretched endlessly. She could hear crying nearby. She could hear shouting. She could hear the terrifying certainty that something was terribly wrong. She crawled toward cover. Her hands shook uncontrollably. Her thoughts scattered. All she wanted was to live. All she wanted was silence. The noise continued. Then a sudden burning pain tore through her side. She gasped and pressed her hand against her body. Warmth spread beneath her fingers. Shock muted the pain, but not the fear. She lay still, afraid that movement would be the end. Minutes felt like years. Her vision blurred. Her mind clung to memories. Her childhood, her family. Moments she never thought might be her last. Eventually, the sounds faded. Sirens replaced chaos. Voices called out cautiously. Help arrived, but safety still felt distant. She was carried away on a stretcher. Lights passed above her in fragments. Faces hovered, then disappeared. Her body trembled as reality settled in. She had been shot. She had survived. The hospital became her world. Bright rooms, beeping machines, doctors speaking words she barely understood. Pain arrived in waves once shock released its grip. Surgery followed, then waiting, then more waiting. When she woke again, everything felt different. Her body was weak, her mind exhausted, her spirit uncertain. Visitors came with tears and relief. They called her lucky, they called her strong, but she did not feel either. Sleep brought no rest. Nightmares invaded relentlessly. The sound returned again and again. Her body reacted as if danger was still present. Recovery was slow. Pain lingered. Fear lingered longer. She learned that survival carried weight, that living after trauma required courage she never knew she possessed. Each day, she faced memories she could not escape. Hallways reminded her of running. Loud sounds froze her completely. Crowds suffocated her. She questioned why she lived, why others did not. Guilt settled deep within her chest. Doctors healed her body, but her mind carried wounds without visible scars. She tried to return to normal life, but normal no longer existed. The world felt unpredictable. Safety felt fragile. She avoided places, she avoided conversations, she avoided herself. Yet somewhere within the fear, a quiet realization began to form. She was still here, breathing, existing. Survival had chosen her, and though she did not yet understand why, her story was not over. This was only the beginning. The days after the hospital blurred together. Time lost its meaning. Morning and night felt the same. She returned home, but home no longer felt safe. Every sound startled her. Every shadow carried danger. Her body reacted before thought could arrive. Heart racing, hands shaking, breath collapsing. Sleep refused to come peacefully. When it did, it carried her back to that place. She relived the fear again and again, waking soaked in sweat, gasping for air. People told her healing takes time. They told her to be patient. They told her she was lucky to be alive. Their words felt heavy instead of comforting. She stopped answering calls. She avoided messages. Even familiar voices felt overwhelming. Isolation wrapped around her quietly. Guilt followed her everywhere. She thought about the faces she remembered. She wondered who did not make it. She wondered why she did. Survivor's guilt became her constant companion. It whispered questions she could not escape. Why you? Why not them? Therapy began reluctantly. Sitting in a quiet room felt unbearable. Speaking about the event made her chest tighten, but silence was suffocating. Her therapist spoke gently, explained trauma responses, explained how the brain protects itself. She listened, but understanding came slowly. Healing did not move in a straight line. Some days felt manageable. Others crushed her completely. She tried returning to work. Walking into the building made her legs weak. Memories flooded instantly. She left before reaching the door. Crowded spaces became impossible. Public places felt like traps. She scanned exits constantly. Her body never relaxed. Friends wanted to help, but did not know how. Conversations became awkward. They avoided the topic. She felt unseen. Anger emerged unexpectedly, at the world, at the system, at the violence that shattered lives. She questioned whether justice existed, whether change was possible, whether pain ever truly ended. One evening, she sat alone scrolling through news. Another shooting, another headline, another list of victims. Her chest tightened. Tears fell silently. She realized her story was repeating everywhere. For the first time, something shifted. Her pain connected to a larger truth. She was not alone. Others were living the same nightmare. She searched for survivor stories, read words that mirrored her feelings: fear, guilt, rage, confusion. A strange comfort appeared. Shared pain felt lighter. Shared voices felt stronger. She joined an online support group. At first, she only listened. Names, stories, emotions filled the screen. Survivors spoke openly, some further along in healing, some newly wounded. Their courage stirred something within her. If they could speak, maybe she could too. She typed a short message, then deleted it, typed again, sent it. Responses came quickly, words of understanding, words of validation, words that said, "You are not broken." For the first time since the shooting, she felt heard. That night, she slept longer. Nightmares still came, but hope entered quietly. She began attending group sessions. Listening turned into speaking. Speaking turned into sharing. Her voice trembled but did not disappear. Her story mattered. Her pain mattered. She learned that trauma thrives in silence, that healing begins with truth. Weeks passed, then months. Progress remained uneven but visible. She could walk outside again. She could sit in a cafe near the window. She could breathe through panic instead of fleeing. Strength returned slowly. Not the strength of forgetting, but the strength of facing. One session introduced advocacy, survivors turning pain into purpose, education, awareness, support. The idea scared her. Visibility meant vulnerability, but it also meant impact. She resisted at first. She was still healing, she was still afraid, but the thought lingered. If her voice could help even one person, could she stay silent? She remembered the faces she lost, the stories that ended too soon. Their silence deserved meaning. She did not know it yet, but a seed had been planted. Her survival was becoming something more. The idea of advocacy settled in her mind quietly at first. She thought about speaking publicly, sharing her story in small circles. At first, she imagined fear, imagined trembling words, imagined judgment. But she also imagined change. If one person understood, if one person felt less alone, maybe it was worth the fear. She began by writing her story. Pages filled with trembling words, moments relived in vivid detail, pain raw and unfiltered, tears often smearing sentences. Writing became a release. Her thoughts became clearer. The chaos inside began to make sense. She read her words aloud, her voice shaking, her breath uneven. Slowly, she began sharing with trusted friends. They listened without interruption. They validated her experience. They reminded her she was not weak. She realized vulnerability held strength. Eventually, she joined local survivor meetings. She listened first, observed the way others coped, noticed how some turned suffering into action. She marveled at their courage, felt inspired and terrified at the same time. The first time she spoke, she almost backed out. Standing in front of strangers, her hands shook, her throat tightened, memories surged forward uncontrollably. Then she remembered the faces she could not forget, the lives lost, the silence that had followed them. She breathed deeply and began. Her words faltered, but continued. She described fear, pain, helplessness. She described survival. She described guilt. By the end of her speech, she was exhausted, but something shifted inside. A spark of purpose ignited. The group applauded softly. Some wiped tears, some nodded in understanding. Afterwards, people approached her, shared their own stories, thanked her for speaking, told her she gave them hope. Hope became a new companion. It replaced a small piece of fear with possibility. She began speaking more frequently. School assemblies, community gatherings, online platforms. Each time the fear returned, each time her body resisted, but each time she overcame it. Her voice grew stronger, her message clearer. She also began focusing on mental health awareness, encouraging survivors to seek help, explaining therapy, explaining coping strategies, sharing resources. Her work expanded slowly. She collaborated with organizations, helped design support programs, spoke with local officials about safety measures. Her role became larger than she imagined. She met other survivors who had become advocates. Together, they shared strategies, supported one another, created networks of support. Her life shifted. Pain remained, but became manageable. Fear remained, but became a tool. She used it to connect with others. She discovered that turning trauma into advocacy was not linear. Some days she doubted. Some nights she struggled to sleep. Some moments left her frozen with memories. But she persisted because she remembered why she started, because she remembered the faces she could not forget. And she realized something profound. Her survival had meaning. Her voice had power. One day, she received a letter from a young survivor. Trembling words filled the page. Gratitude, recognition, understanding. Her heart swelled. She understood the impact she could have. One voice could create ripples, ripples that reached far beyond her. She made a promise to herself to continue speaking, to continue helping, to continue living with purpose. Her journey was no longer just about survival. It was about transformation. The path was long, the memories remained, but she had begun to reclaim her life. One word, one story, one action at a time. Her days grew filled with purpose, though challenges remained. She traveled to schools and community centers, spoke to groups large and small. Her story always met with quiet attention and sometimes tears. Every time she spoke, she relived moments of fear, but also moments of courage. She learned to pace herself, to rest when the memories became too heavy, to reach out to her therapist when panic returned. She understood that advocacy did not erase trauma, it worked alongside it. She began writing articles for local publications, sharing her experience publicly for the first time. Her words reached beyond immediate circles. Strangers responded with gratitude and solidarity. Some shared their own painful stories. Some asked for advice. Some offered support. Social media became a tool. She created posts advocating for mental health, for survivor resources, for violence prevention. Her voice grew louder, her influence wider. With every story she told, she felt the weight of responsibility. The survivors who could not speak, the families who mourned, the young people who feared for their safety. She started workshops focused on coping strategies, teaching breathing techniques, mindfulness exercises, ways to manage trauma responses. She invited experts, worked alongside counselors and psychologists. Her fear did not disappear. Crowded rooms still caused tremors. Sudden noises startled her. She still carried the pain of the past, but she discovered how to move through it, how to let purpose guide her steps. Her advocacy caught the attention of national organizations. Invitations arrived to speak at conferences, panels, discussions, media interviews. Her voice amplified further. She became a symbol of resilience. Despite recognition, she remained grounded. She never wanted to be defined solely by the shooting. She was a survivor, yes, but also a teacher, a guide, a living example of transformation. She collaborated with survivors from different cities, shared strategies for coping, shared methods of advocacy. The network they created grew strong. Support became both personal and collective. She learned the importance of self-care, exercise, meditation, time alone, connecting with friends who truly understood, all became tools for sustaining her work. Evenings were often quiet. She would sit with her journal, reflecting on progress, reflecting on moments of fear, moments of triumph, moments when she wanted to give up. She acknowledged the complexity of healing, understanding that advocacy did not make her pain vanish, but it gave her a path forward, a way to transform fear into action. One day, she met a survivor younger than her, fear written clearly on their face, confusion, guilt, and isolation. She guided them patiently, shared tools, shared her story, shared hope. The young survivor began to smile again, to breathe, to speak about feelings without shame. She realized then the full scope of what she had become, a bridge between despair and courage, a living testament to the possibility of reclaiming life. Her own family watched her transform. They witnessed someone broken begin to shine. They marveled at resilience, at determination, at the refusal to be defined by tragedy. Her life had changed completely. The girl who once hid from the world now faced it boldly. She still carried scars, still carried memory, but she no longer let them dictate every action. She was building something larger than herself, a movement, a voice, a presence. She realized the power of one person, one story, one act of courage, and she embraced the responsibility fully. Her work continued to expand in ways she never imagined. She received invitations to speak in cities across the country. Planes, trains, long drives became part of her routine. Every stage brought nerves. Every audience brought echoes of fear, but also the knowledge that her story mattered. She trained herself to manage panic. Breathing exercises became second nature. Meditation helped anchor her mind. She carried small reminders of calm in her bag. A photo of her loved ones, a note she had written during recovery, a token to ground her when fear threatened to take over. She began collaborating with lawmakers and policymakers, sharing her experience to advocate for stronger survivor support programs, gun violence prevention initiatives, mental health resources in schools. Her voice carried weight because it was real, because it came from someone who had lived through the unimaginable. She also worked closely with other survivors turned advocates. Together, they formed workshops and panels. They shared strategies, created networks of support, provided guidance for navigating trauma, for finding strength, for reclaiming life. Despite all of this, her personal healing remained ongoing. Some nights she still awoke in terror, sweat soaking her pajamas, heart racing uncontrollably. Memories uninvited but persistent. She allowed herself to feel, to process, to grieve the moments she could not change. And then she channeled those feelings into purpose, turning pain into a tool to help others, transforming trauma into action. Her advocacy reached national media. Her interviews inspired countless people. Messages poured in from survivors who finally felt seen, from families who felt understood, from young people who feared speaking out. Her impact grew far beyond her imagination. Even with success, she remained grounded in humility. She knew the journey was not linear. Some days she felt strong, other days fragile. Some moments brought tears, others brought triumph. She started mentoring new survivors who wished to share their stories, teaching them that courage is not absence of fear, but action despite it, that their voices mattered, that their experiences had power. She also worked on creating educational materials, books, workshops, online resources. Her goal was to make help accessible to anyone in need. She wanted every survivor to feel supported, to feel that their story could transform into change. Her network expanded internationally. She met survivors from different countries, shared methods, shared coping strategies, learned from cultural perspectives on trauma. Her understanding of healing deepened. Through all of this, she maintained private moments of reflection, journaling, writing letters she never sent, meditating, breathing, honoring her own journey. Her family continued to provide quiet support, watching her transform from a frightened survivor into a leader, witnessing the power of resilience, seeing what happens when pain is not hidden, but honored and transformed. Every time she stood before a group, every time she spoke publicly, she felt the weight of responsibility, but also the fulfillment of purpose. Her trauma became her message. Her survival became her mission. She began to realize fully that she was no longer only surviving. She was living fully, actively shaping the world around her, creating spaces for healing and understanding. She felt pride in progress, pride in courage, pride in the way she had transformed unimaginable fear into a force for good. And she knew the journey was far from over, but for the first time, she truly believed she could keep moving forward. Her influence continued to grow as she dedicated herself fully to advocacy. She spoke at universities, conferences, and survivor gatherings. Every time she stepped on stage, her heart raced. Every time she told her story, her body remembered the past. But she pushed forward, knowing that sharing could save lives. She developed workshops for schools, teaching students about trauma, coping strategies, about resilience, about speaking out against violence. She partnered with counselors and psychologists to create safe spaces, rooms where young people could express fear, pain, and confusion without judgment. Her voice reached parents, teachers, and administrators. They listened closely, took notes, implemented programs. She began to see tangible change as communities became more aware and supportive. Despite the recognition and impact, she remained humble. She never wanted to be seen as heroic. She wanted to be seen as human, someone who had lived through tragedy and refused to be consumed by it. Her authenticity drew people in. Her story resonated. She continued mentoring new survivors, teaching them that courage does not mean absence of fear, that healing is ongoing, that advocacy is a powerful tool for reclaiming life. Her personal life shifted slowly. She began reconnecting with friends, rebuilding relationships fractured by trauma. She discovered joy in simple things: a walk in the park, coffee with a friend, laughter without guilt. Yet, the memories never disappeared. Nightmares still came. Panic still surfaced in unexpected moments. But she had learned to navigate them, to let them exist without letting them control her. She also began working with media, sharing her story on national television, in podcasts, writing op-eds. Her reach expanded beyond local communities. She became a symbol of transformation, resilience, and hope. Through all of this, she never lost sight of the reason she started: to give a voice to those silenced by violence, to create networks of support, to show survivors that healing is possible. Her work caught the attention of international organizations. Invitations to speak in other countries arrived. She hesitated at first. Traveling meant facing fears and vulnerabilities. But she realized impact required courage beyond comfort. She accepted and found that sharing globally was both terrifying and rewarding. Other survivors shared their experiences. Their pain mirrored hers. Their strength inspired her. She discovered a profound truth: that trauma connects people across cultures, across languages, across continents. Pain shared creates empathy. Empathy fosters change. Her days were full but fulfilling. She balanced advocacy with personal healing. She learned to rest, to seek therapy, to honor her limits, to celebrate victories, no matter how small. She recognized that transformation is ongoing, that turning trauma into advocacy does not erase suffering. It redefines it, gives it purpose, allows it to shape something meaningful. Every speech, every workshop, every article became part of her journey. Her voice became a lifeline for those who felt alone, her story a beacon of hope. And she realized fully that survival was no longer enough. She had moved beyond surviving. She was thriving, turning pain into change, fear into action, loss into purpose. The years that followed were filled with work, purpose, and quiet reflection. She continued speaking around the world, connecting with survivors and families, creating programs that provided mental health support. Her voice reached places she never imagined. Her story inspired countless people to take action and seek help. She wrote a book detailing her experience. The process was painful, reliving moments of terror, moments of helplessness, moments of grief. But it was also liberating. She poured her heart into every page, sharing lessons learned, strategies for coping, and the power of turning trauma into advocacy. She began to see tangible changes in the communities she served. Schools implemented programs she helped design. Organizations created networks for survivors. Policies were influenced by the stories she shared. Her work demonstrated that one person could create ripples of change, ripples that touched lives far beyond what she could see. Even with her growing influence, she remained deeply human. She experienced fear, anxiety, and sadness. She experienced days when the memories of that day returned with full force, but she faced them. She honored her emotions. She did not run from the pain. She used it to fuel her purpose. She mentored new survivors constantly, teaching them to embrace their story, to speak even when it is hard, to transform fear into action, to recognize that healing and advocacy can coexist and that their voice has power. Her family remained by her side, witnessing her growth from a frightened survivor into a confident advocate. They marveled at her courage and dedication. They celebrated her victories quietly, understanding that transformation is not measured by accolades, but by the lives touched and hearts healed. Her work expanded to international conferences. She collaborated with experts from the globe, shared strategies for trauma care and advocacy. She listened to stories from different cultures. She learned new methods for supporting survivors. Her perspective broadened and deepened. Through it all, she never forgot the faces she could not save, the lives lost, the stories that ended too soon. Their memory became a guiding light, a reminder that her voice mattered, that her survival carried meaning, that her actions could honor those who were gone. She found peace in knowing she had transformed her pain into purpose. The fear that once controlled her no longer defined her. The nightmares that once haunted her nights now existed alongside strength, alongside resilience, alongside hope. She understood that survival was only the beginning. Transformation was the true achievement, and advocacy was the tool through which healing and change intertwined. Her journey became a testament, a living proof that the human spirit can endure, that trauma can be transformed into power, that fear can be converted into action, and that even the darkest moments can inspire light. She stood before crowds, large and small, shared her story with authenticity, connected with countless individuals, and in every interaction, she reinforced a truth she had come to live fully. Survival is not enough. Transformation is possible. Purpose can arise from pain, and a single voice can ignite change. Her life became a living example of resilience and advocacy, of turning trauma into hope, of reclaiming power from tragedy, and of choosing to create a future filled with courage, strength, and compassion. She had survived. She had healed. She had spoken. She had led. And in doing so, she had turned the darkest chapter of her life into a legacy of hope and empowerment.